Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMO RPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I am your host, Agelos, and we are back once again for another podcast episode, and we have a fun one to talk about today. Obviously, if you're watching the video, you'll actually see some of the Alpha Zero footage from the December 15th live stream, which is one of the things we will be talking about this very evening. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. With me, I have Gundel. How are you, sir?
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for showing up, man. It was awesome. I know I wanted to get you back on here a few times, and I know we've been trying to touch base, and finally we've lined up. The stars have aligned, the sicknesses have abated, and now we're here.
Yep. Glad to be here.
Speaking of aligning stars and avoiding sicknesses, we have Sinbad, one of the leaders of Vengeance. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing well. Glad to be back. Glad to be healthy. You know, it's pretty nice.
it was touch and go. I know I tried to put a couple episodes together before the holiday started, and it wasn't happening. Between the amount of sicknesses we had, both here at the DCN headquarters, as well as abroad, apparently, it was tough to get this stuff going. So we're here. Obviously, before we start, got to do a little housekeeping from the DCN side of things. Definitely want to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network, all of those who support us every single month and helping us continue to do what we do. You guys are awesome. I have a couple people who've been supporting us at this point for, I think, over a year now straight, which is pretty freaking amazing. And I'll have to get those names for probably next episode, because I'll be more prepared. But thank you so much for that. Second thing, we've been getting a ton of mail, so keep it coming in. And we are going to be doing a mailbag episode for sometime after the new year. Obviously, this episode is going to come out on iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube and all those fun places. I have to look at the time now. Probably around the 1st. But we're recording this a little bit before that. So sometime in the new year, we're going to be doing a mailbag episode where we're just going to be answering fan mail. We generally save that for when there's not stuff to talk about, and we get to theorize and talk about what the fans are asking. So, I've gotten a bunch of emails. Don't think we didn't get them. We've got them. We just are waiting to actually talk about them. All right. Guys, we're going to talk about the December 15th live stream. Now, before anyone on the internet starts freaking out, we are not going to be talking about the Alpha Zero tests that the players have been encountering. That is under NDA. We are not talking about that. Everything we are talking about is what was shown of the Alpha Zero gameplay on December 15th. Nothing else. So, before you start running and burning your flags or whatever in the world you guys do saying that there's NDA being broken, there's not. So there you go. All right, guys. December 15th, the crew got together and showed off what the players are going to be seeing for Alpha Zero. And you can see here in the background, Steven's running around on his mage with a bow, which is pretty awesome. I guess, what were you guys' just overview thought of the Alpha Zero experience that they presented during the live stream? And then I'll break it down into what I had seen and we can discuss. I don't care. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll let Sinbad go first.
All right. From what I saw, just of their initial presentation of it, just having that world set up at this stage, it's only been a few months after PAX. They really haven't had a lot of time to develop anything yet, right?
Yeah.
But they've managed to get so much out. Like it was impressive. I've seen, early access games with less content, which is surprising, because this is a first pass in an alpha, right? Yeah. Like, this is not even like Alpha 1, this is an Alpha 0, where they're basically just making sure things are, trying to work at this point. Mm-hmm. So for them to be able to even just show off this like little demo that they ran through for the stream, it's amazing. And it looks beautiful. Like, I can't wait to try to run this at max settings. It's going to be insane.
I don't even think I could run it on max settings on my PC. Way to rub it in. Thanks.
Well, she's gonna need like 3 different computers running in tandem. You know, it'll be fine.
Need more power. That's what I
won't burn anything.
My little hamster wheel under here, the poor hamster. Yeah.
Oh, I just hear like Scotty like yelling in the background. I'm giving it all she's got.
That's my computer every day. So yeah. Gundle, what about you, man? What are your thoughts?
I thought right out of the gate, the first thing that I noticed when they came into the world was just how big the world was compared to the character models, and it just gave you that sense of like, wow, this world is huge, just in the overall spacing of it. And for a first run alpha, like off of that stream, it was amazing to see on just even the large scale of like how far they went within that game, and everybody was concerned on how small it would be, but just off of that, it was huge, and it was mind blowing to see that coming from PAX to this now. Mm-hmm. So I was blown away.
For a second there, I thought you saw my note. I'm like, did I send you my notes? Because that's like the first thing that I had marked down was a sense of scale.
See, I'm cheating already.
You cheat already. I'm like, computer's hacked. That's why it's running so bad. There's all of his miscellaneous scripts in the background. Anyway, sense of scale. This is, I'll break down what I kind of saw. And you'll be able to follow along, especially if you're watching the video now. This is the entire live stream cut down a little bit. I shaved off a few things to make it so, you know, it cut out the dead space. So it's pretty much all there on the screen. Sense of scale. When you first go in there and saw the Divine Gateway, guys, that was awesome. But the sense of scale goes even farther than that with the idea of how big the zone actually was with the 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer zone. It's big. Like you seen them running around, and they were going for about an hour and a half, I think, all in all was the entire stream, almost 2 hours of a live stream. And you didn't see the same stuff over again. Like they were moving, and it was huge. It was a massive area. So obviously sense of scale is something that is just neat to see your character in relation to like the Divine Gateway, and seeing how large they built things up and how, I guess, real to the concept art it was, like as a direct translation of what the concept art that we first originally saw. I think we did this on one of these earlier episodes where we showed the concept art. I said, no, you see this little human right there, this little spray of paint that's in a humanoid form? That's supposed to represent a player character, and you could see how small it was compared to the world. And I'm glad they actually stuck to that and expanded it out. So other than being wowed at the zone size, which was cool, here's something I thought was neat, and you can actually see it in the video right now. Steven has already said, and you actually see a couple things on here. Steven has already, he's playing a mage. Like you can see on his bar, he's got a mage. And, but there's armor combinations that they showed us that you can mix and match. Like he had the heavy armor shoulders on, the light armor. Like I love that they are still sticking to that. Mm-hmm. What are you guys' thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that the overall kind of showing that you can still do whatever armor you want, even if you are on a mage like Steven was cool to see, and it's glad that they're sticking to that premise. I'm still a little hesitant when it comes to the passive abilities that they've mentioned in regards to the augments, and I'm hoping that maybe your augments will, if you're a mage tank or whatever, your augments might allow for the passive to change to heavy armor where you get the passive or whatever the case may be. But just overall, that was really cool to see, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like that idea of being able to just pick whatever you want. You know, like why be limited to something, right? And like you were saying, if you can choose what your secondary class is, and that can unlock something else for you, it's pretty awesome to just get into what combos can come out of that. But also just for like an RP sense, like what if you want to pick like someone who's, you know, really really tiny but really really strong, you know, and you're like a mage, but you can also like one punch someone in your RP, like, you know, like you want to be able to just get armor that looks bulky at that point too, maybe. I don't know.
No,
but for me, it's pretty nice.
I'm curious how they're gonna do it with stats though, because the game that I can think of the most recently well, there's two that come to mind right off the bat. There was Ultima Online a long time ago, and then ESO now, that allowed you to mix and match armor. Now, UO actually did have some restrictions, which I thought were pretty neat, in that if you were a mage, wearing metal armor actually hurt you and would cause your spells to fizzle more often than not. The higher your skill was, you would negate it, but you still had that chance of fizzling because, you know, the metal counteracted your spell effects. Whereas ESO went a different way. Like you could be a Magicka character in light, medium, or heavy armor. The passives may not necessarily have helped you 100%, because each one was kind of aligned towards a specific set. The passes of light armor, you know, reduce Magicka cost, Magicka regeneration. Same thing with the medium armor. It was stamina regeneration. And heavy armor had a lot of health, you know, it was aimed towards tank, melee, or physical DPS, and then caster and healer, who used Magicka. Now, you could augment that and switch things around and run. And a lot of people did this, like, especially in PvP. They took all heavy armor because of how they changed PvP, especially later on, that resources didn't really matter as much, or regenerations didn't matter as much, because fights didn't last as long as PvE raids did. So people took all heavy armor because the resistances were better than not having it, and they just loaded it up with Magicka enchants. Do you think they're going to allow us to do something similar to that? Like, is armor just going to have raw defense and we can actually manipulate it? Or do you think it's going to be more akin to armor coming with preloaded stats and you mix and match and just hope those stats, you know, play well together? Or maybe you get benefits from it.
You know, I think that Steven watches this show. So I think if he hears this will probably be something that he'd be like, yes, let's go do that. We want to make it as in-depth as possible. Like, every system he's made so far is, from a gamer's perspective, beautiful, you know? Like, he's a gamer first and foremost. So if this is something that would, you know, add customization, add a layer of, you know, like, thinking behind it, you know, thinking you have to basically now figure out what you want to create with your armor. Like, I'm pretty sure he would put that in there.
Right. And I was going to say, I know he listens to the show. I actually also know that other people listen to the show, because I was messaging some of the other developers. I'm not going to say their name. I would, but I don't want to get them in trouble, because afterwards I sent a message like, oh yeah, I listened to your show while I'm at work. I'm like, awesome. You can't say you weren't working because I'm talking about the game you're developing, but shout out to you, mystery person. Yeah, cool. Maybe I'll say his name later, as long as Steven doesn't fire him. I don't know. Seriously, Steven, you're listening. This is a show about the game you're developing. It's work. It's work related. There you go. I don't know how I'm going to spin that, but yeah, no, that was something, and it actually kind of leads right into the next thing. There were a few times in the early part, like right now, if you're watching the video right now, Steven has a bow, and he's using a bow. But at one point, he actually used a staff. He switched it around to an orb, and it was actually funny because at one point, Jeff even made mention of it in chat, going, "There's Steven again, switching his weapons up every 3 seconds," you know. And it's neat because you could see on his action bar. The action bar has your 1 through 0, right? That's where your skill bar goes. But then you have other action hotkeys for your gathering, and then your out of combat ability. And then also, I think it marked as a Q on here. I think I see it. That's your weapon auto, if you will. I guess auto, even though they don't have an auto attack, but it's your combo weapon or weapon skill. And it's neat that the weapon skill has its own skill, and it doesn't, if you're a mage, you're not shooting lightning arrows, you're shooting arrows, and it has its own skill to go with it. What do you guys think of that?
This kind of brought me back to like old EverQuest 2, where you were able to create macros to where you could switch your inventory items at will. So you could have swords going at one time, and then if you wanted to use quicker timings, you would use daggers for rogues. And that kind of brought me back to that, and I'm hoping that maybe you can switch your items in combat, depending on it. Like I know we were talking about Ranger at one point, where the min max distance, if you can switch it to swords at a time, so you're not actually completely weak and defenseless, that would be kind of cool. And I think that would be really kind of a unique way to create combat and show kind of that higher end tier skill of being able to switch your weapons while you're still gaining that focus to use for the ultimate ability without missing a beat. And I think that'd be kind of a unique taste.
You know, ESO did that with having, like, you couldn't switch it out in combat, but they allowed you to have 2 weapon sets so you could swap back and forth. It was like 2 bars. I see there's a number bar here to switch your skills around. I wonder if that would be tied to a weapon or not. That'd be neat. Like you were saying, like right now his is set to 1 because it's only 1 bar. But a lot of times if you hit shift and the number keys, at least that's how other MMOs do it, it'll cycle through your multiple bars unless you change the hotkey by default. It'd be neat if that would also change the weapon assigned to that hotbar. I think it'd be
pretty cool.
I think that'd be neat.
I mean, it reminds me in a sense of how like Dark Souls does it with like switching out your different weapons in a sense, because you could be dueling someone and have out like a rapier and then need to get some distance real quickly and then pull out a crossbow and just shoot him a couple times with it like that. I love that combo. Just because it really does let like the skill cap rise with it. You have to have a higher skill cap to be able to deal with it, and you have to have a higher skill cap to be able to use it effectively. As you were saying with like a ranger, if you got pushed too hard and you had to basically fight someone really close, you could use your sword, take out that, and basically go to combat with them, in that close range. But at the same time, if you can put distance on them as that you can pull back out your bow and then keep going. So it also like ups the level of DPS you can deal out as well.
Keeps your time on target, because I know ESO, it's pretty much if you're a melee character, your secondary bar is almost always a ranged weapon. Mm-hmm. So that way you have that option of going, close range, far range at will when you need it. Now, this is something that I saw that I want to put on here, but it kind of ties in, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Remember during PAX, they had the combo system.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you're seeing Steven attack right now, and you're seeing combos go off, but there's no combo bar. It looks like they just put a placeholder combo system in place where you're just auto-comboing at this point. Do you think they're doing that just so people could build the focus they need, which I will mention later? Are they trying to redo that entire combo quick time event system?
I gotta be careful how I say this, but I thought he said that they disabled it for this first rendition, but it will be back in the Alpha 1.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. I'm
well,
pretty
I mean,
sure that's where
you
he went.
can clearly see they disabled it because he's just hitting Q. You could see the skill activating and comboing. Like you can clearly see he's just hitting Q and it says combo, combo, combo. And when he puts that lightning spell or whatever it was that's a focus, you see it actually starting to light up as he gains focus. So it's auto comboing at this point, which I'm a little disappointed at that. At least from this point of view, only because I actually really liked what I saw at PAX. I'm sad they didn't keep it.
Grew on me too.
I mean, from just talking with them there at PAX about it, I don't think they're going to get rid of it. I think they're going to keep it in. They're just probably reworking it because just having talked with a couple of the devs there, they were very aware of the feedback around it. Basically that people didn't like that it took their eyes off of combat. So I mean, they were trying to figure out how to make that work for people, probably. I mean, one of them suggested, doing something like as a visual cue. I don't know if that's actually what's going to end up in there, but that'd probably be a much better solution to the initial problem people had. Plus, it still keeps in that kind of like a skill-based system in a sense, of having to hit that combo every time to build up your ultimate. Mm-hmm. So I do think they're going to keep it in there. I think it's just for this that they took it out.
Right.
I hope they keep it in there because it did raise it a little bit higher for the people to gain the focus a little bit faster. If everybody can combo all the time just by hitting Q, it takes away from your ultimate, in my opinion.
Right. No, I definitely agree. This was something that I know I talked about multiple times, that especially early on in ESO, they had what was called the finesse system, which was almost exactly what this was. And I thought that was such an amazing system that by actually doing stuff skillfully in combat, doing successful blocks and things like that, you actually gained finesse. And then you could do ultimates. They changed it to a flat ultimate gain. And actually it's become to the point where it's like, you get a buff called minor heroism anytime you light attack, and as long as you light attack once every 6 seconds, you're constantly steadily gaining ultimate. Like, it's just like, just make sure I swing once every 6 seconds to make sure I don't lose that buff, and I will always be gaining ultimate at a slow rate. It just took away, it's just buff maintenance, not actual, interesting combat. And the reason why I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't at least give people in Alpha Zero the ability to try the skill system is this very much reminded me of, like, I recently booted up BDO the other day. Mm-hmm. And we all know that's combo heaven. Like, I'm just swinging my sword or whatever, and because I'm not getting hit, it's like combo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, I'm just clicking the mouse, I'm not doing anything. And the combo keeps racking up because apparently I'm not being hit and nothing's breaking it. And it's just, that wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't something where I felt skillful doing it. I wasn't going, wow, I hit 4 that time. I hit 3. I'm like, whatever. What is the difference? Whereas before with the QTE event, it was something that by hitting multiple, you were actually doing a good job. And I think that was, I know they want to keep it. I just wish they would have kept it in, because I feel like it's a little, I don't want to say disingenuous or whatever, but it's kind of like, hey, Alpha Zero, here you go. And then all of a sudden it's back in, and people who may not have been following as close as we go say, whoa, what is this system? Rather than seeing early iterations, we just saw essentially auto combo. It's not really me going against them. I'm sure they had good reasons they want to rework it. I just kind of wish they would have went, okay, this is what we have, and this is temporary. We're going to be working on it like everything else, rather than just removing it and adding the auto. I think that kind of takes away from the sense of what combat really is, right?
I mean, in a sense, the thing is, though, that we don't know why they took it out. It could have not been working at all. So maybe they took it out to fix it, and not just make it better, but to actually fix the base system. The other thing is, with most MMOs, I've never really felt a challenge when it comes to combat. Most MMOs don't do a good job of translating skill into that, other than, simple rotations, making sure that you're hitting your timings correct and just memorizing that pattern. But that's something I'm hoping that they do develop further in this game with the combo system that they're working on right now, like you're saying, because it does add some skill. One thing I would hope to see that this one does well is how we divvy up attacks between the weapons. If it's just that one little button that's dedicated to each weapon there, or if that's going to evolve as the weapons advance as well. It'd be kind of neat.
I think they actually said, this is something I wanted to mention, because they had said that weapons have levels have their own weapons. No, weapons have their own levels, and as you're gaining skill in it, you'll be able to change that skill up to do different things. So it may add morphs and bleeds and all sorts of fun stuff, which I think is very neat. But yeah, it would be nice also if there was a way, if there were multiple that you got to choose as your auto or whatever.
Well, even a different combo with a different so let's say how you have the one attack, the combo, the basic one that just every time you have to hit it, right? What if a new weapon that you get when you upgrade it, you have 2 things in that combo now, and if you hit both, you get an ultimate move that you can unlock or something like that. They did mention something about that in one of the streams once, where they were kind of talking about different quick time events that could happen.
Well, I was hoping for more of a. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was hoping that, kind of going off of what you said, when they're talking about increasing your weapon skill, if it can increase the amount of focus you can do. So if somebody puts way more points into, let's say, I'm just using the bow for example, if they leveled up that bow, they might get more chance to combo within that certain time frame, therefore increasing the amount of focus because they've put time into that bow. I'm hoping that maybe so then you would have that repetition of trying to hit those quick time events at a faster pace, so then you could gain that focus faster. That would be kind of a great thing in my opinion, because people are going to be playing with different builds, different things. But if somebody specializes in something, I mean, I think that would be kind of a good increase to that skill and that ability, and kind of showing that you've mastered that ability, making it that much harder, increasing the skill cap even that much further, because everybody else will have to play at that speed now.
And you know, this is actually funny. One of the games I've been playing recently, outside of ESO, I started playing Guild Wars 2 when this game came out, because that was the game that in my mind had the closest idea of a combo system. Because if you knew how Guild Wars 2 worked, weapons, when you equipped a weapon, it gave you 1 through 5, and they were weapon abilities. But 1 was the auto attack that would combo off of each other. Now, it was very simplistic because it was hard not to do it. But if for whatever reason you were forced off your target, like you swung your sword like a great sword, it actually had 3 different moves that if you hit all 3 in succession, they got more powerful. One was just like one swing. The second one added a stacking buff of might. The third one did something else. Like, you had to have your time on target in order to get all 3. If you got forced away and you didn't make it back in time for whatever the eternal cooldown was, you started back at 1. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, you could have been 1, 1, 2, 1, you know, like, and you're losing out on that extra damage that would have came from the higher tier combos. I'm expecting something very similar, that you're going to have your, you know, 1, 1, 1, but if you're hitting combo, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, you know.
That'd be pretty cool. So that was kind of what I was thinking. You know, basically where you had that, you know, like you have to actually hit each combo to get the better damage out too.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
It would, and you would see the people who actually had the higher damage were the people who were able to pull off those successful combinations without being forced off target. And that's where you would start seeing, you know, part of your skill increase. Moving on from that, let me see where I'm at here. I have a few other things that I really wanted to mention. Obviously, they said the UI has been placeholder. I actually don't think the UI is that bad. I mean, some people don't like it, but I don't know. It was a pretty simple UI and all. I mean, a few graphic update. Did you guys have any issue with the UI?
Not really, no. I mean, I like the general layout of it. It's very simple. You know, actually, it kind of doesn't really distract too, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, no.
Because you want to focus on the world, you know.
Yeah.
My only complaint with it is, that maybe it's because I've missed it, but they don't show the level of the mobs, right? And maybe that's because they want to make everything like dangerous or that you don't know what level the mob may be. But coming from almost every MMO, you always know what the mob may entail, right? So like I know Steven a couple of times during that stream pulled some mobs that were a lot higher than him, and he just almost instantly died. Especially those Fanglers. Steven, don't hate me for this, but you know.
I actually have that on here. Again, you're stealing my notes. It said Fanglers are adorable, and in quotes, and powerful.
Yeah, so hopefully maybe with the rendition of the UI, and I know that they say it's a working model, which is perfectly fine since it's an alpha, but hopefully they will show at least some indication of, like, you know, either a color scheme of like the mob being, you know, red being way higher than you, you know, and then working down to gray where they're weaker than your overall level, or they show your level. Hopefully at least something along those lines. So they give some people like that are coming into the MMO some detail and some background, so they don't instantly get upset when they die to mobs.
You know, of all the things in the UI, I guess that was, like, I was looking at action bars and, like, the party bar. I'm like, that seems all... But you're right. There isn't a lot of information conveyed about, the other characters are monsters, like you said. And here's a little exclusive that I'm going to say. I was speaking with Steven earlier, and I said how much I love the Fanglers, and I require a plushie. And I'm going to post what he wrote to me in Discord here, so you'll be able to see it on the screen. But he actually says they are working on getting Fangler plushies for PAX East.
Awesome.
That would be pretty cool.
If they have them for PAX East, I am freaking buying one. And it's going to be on every show. It's going to sit here on my shoulder. I'm going to rig something up so it's here, or on my head or something. Like, it's going to be in every show. It'll just move around the screen because I require a Fangler plushie. So there you go.
They're pretty cool.
That was probably the most exciting thing that I actually got. And that wasn't even during Alpha Zero. I was just like, yeah.
I saw that in the Discord and I was like, yes.
Yes. I specifically asked him, like, I want a plushie. It needs to happen. Make it happen. He's like, well, we're working on that for PAX East, so you may have them. I'm like, take my... I felt like Fry from Futurama. Shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
So what he needs to do is also just get a single sandal. Just put it out there. You know?
A few other things to mention here other than the UI. One thing, and again, this actually goes back to what you were saying about information. There is no display that I saw for focus other than the bar itself gradually lighting up. I feel like that would be something that ESO is similar to this actually, because their bar is kind of grayed out, and as you gain ultimate, it moves up on the bar and lightens up, and then the whole square shines when you can use it. But one of the things they added as part of the UI is they actually added ultimate number, that you can actually put a number on it that shows how much ultimate. So like in order to use Flawless Dawnbreaker in that game, it required 75 ultimate. Well, the number would actually show you how much ultimate you had, so it's not just watching this light up bar, which in the event, an event of all these spell effects and stuff going on, maybe it's kind of hard to see that, but there's a number that goes 1, 3, 8, 12, 50, 75, and then you can use it. I really would love to see something in the UI that allows you to change and put like the number scale for focus, like whatever it requires, or even a percentage, so you know how much you've earned. Because numbers I can look at a glance and go, yep, okay, now I know where I'm at. A slightly lit up bar or button doesn't really do much for me.
I mean, I like that idea, but I want it to be optional. Like, I don't want it to be something that has to happen, because I do like things that don't distract me visually. Because I know after a certain amount, I'll count it out in my head. Like, I'll know that so many presses of this will get me my ultimate. And so I usually don't have to look at it. But if something's flashing at me, or if something's like has a number on it, like my eyes immediately go there. So I just want it to be at least an option.
Yeah, you know what? It's very true. I know in other games where like when I had to maintain buffs or debuffs, I started counting in my head while I was playing, going, okay, I know this debuff lasts for 6 seconds. At 4 seconds, I can do my next one. Like when I was actively raiding, I often turn my mic off because I'm sitting there going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, because I'm counting in my head or out loud, so I know when my buffs are going up and down, up and down. My wife had always been sitting there going, what are you doing? Just counting over there. I'm like, shut up, you made me lose track. I
tap with my leg, man.
I hope, and this kind of shouts out to Jeffrey there, I hope that they do something in regards to that, because in EQ2, and I know he's a fan of EQ2, the Bard system and having to use your group chat for how long the buff will last and everything else, and it just clogged up the whole thing there. I'm shutting you out here because I hope that there will be something where it'll show the entire group or the entire group's party of the buff on how long it's going to last, so we don't have to clog up the group chat with the macro of how long the buff's going to last for. So everybody does their damage at this time. This is the max damage rotation. This is when you hit it now. So hopefully that gets changed or gets renditioned.
At the very least, like have it to where at least that person can see it, for each person, so he can reapply his buffs as it goes. But that'd be cool. I'd like to see that.
Yeah. And obviously the more information you have, the better. I mean, and again, some people don't need it. Some people like to have that information. If you can turn it off and on, that would be really cool. I'd definitely like to see that. Now I know they also included, and they've said they've included this voice over IP for any type of grouping. Now, I think they were just using TeamSpeak for this. I think they hit control once at the beginning. Like, yep, I hear you. And then there was that. I think it was Jeffrey who's like, oh, I hear you in both places now. Because he had his control or whatever, which I guess is the key that was defaulted for the voice over IP. So he's like hearing them twice. I'm curious how much use this is going to get. And the only reason why I say this, if this game were coming to console for whatever reason, which, I hope it doesn't. Anyway, sorry you console fans, but you only have so many buttons And every time that anything comes to console, it starts shrinking down the amount of stuff you can actually use because you have to be able to fit everything on a controller. And that kind of sucked with ESOs. That's why we have so few buttons, because they intentionally wanted to move it to console. But on console side, I can see where this VoIP is helpful because they don't have an internal application or an external application, but most people playing on computers already, especially if they start doing that Discord integration that they talked about very early on. Why? Like,
well, I think that's probably how they're going to do it. They'll probably use Discord to do the voice over internet protocol.
And I don't mind it though. I see a reason on why you would use it, and I think this is kind of going back to what Steven said early on about spies and things of that, because guilds and stuff like that, especially when you're doing the raid tier and everything else, and you're trying to make sure your caravan routes are safe, that if you have somebody randomly in a party that you've teamed up with, they don't have your Discord information, right? And you can kind of get away with that. Along with lines of, I know not everybody uses mics, but at least if they can hear you, it stops the typing, and then you can at least progress faster through things where you won't have to sit there, stop, type, and move on. I think that part's good. I understand that the overall premises. I'm pretty sure most people either use Skype, TeamSpeak, or Discord at this day and age. But I don't mind that as your kind of your first defense, at least for your guilds and things of nature, or speeding up runs, just as a handy thing. But I'm sure most guilds like mine, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is going to use their Discord for their guildies and things of that nature, and they'll disable that when they're in the party.
Right. No, it does make, and I'm actually glad you said that because, like DCN, we have a guild that's coming in here as well, but we're an open community because of the podcast. Like, all of you guys are not part of our guild specifically, but you're part of our greater community. And I was like, well, I mean, we have locked channels. Like, that's not hard. You have to have our guild tag permission in order to get in. What's the big deal? But that was actually something that I didn't even think about, right? If you're joining a random party, I just know how much of a pain in the bum it is. Now, like, because I run a website and stuff like that, I just do a 301 redirect so I can give people very easy information. Because obviously the Discord invites are, discord.gg/random characters. I take that random character and I actually just do a redirect from my hosting provider, so I can just say go to dungeoncrawlnetwork.com/discord, and it just redirects you, and that's easier and more understandable from a human perspective. But getting people into your Discord, if you didn't have that option, you're right, it's very tough. You have to go, you copy it, throw it in chat. Hopefully they can copy paste it out. Yeah, you're right. So having those random pugs, like you just are hopping in one, having it available in game, I guess, it makes sense. My only thought is the one game I know that did this, I guess others did too, but World of Warcraft, when they did this for Battlegrounds, that was their big thing. They had this voice over IP. No one used it. Like, it was this big thing. They're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. Now it's no more of this random typing, go take the lumber mill. But no one used it. Like, I feel like they took it out of the game eventually, just like quietly over time. Like, well, since no one's using it.
I think they did. I can't remember anybody ever using it.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe I'm just cynical or whatever, but I just feel like no one used it, and therefore they just one expansion or whatever just removed it from the game. And I don't even think anyone even noticed. Like, right now, if I logged into my WoW account, I wouldn't know how to turn it on if it's even still there. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
So that's like, this game is going to be a lot different, though. It's going to be very focused on group activities. Be very, very focused on finding a guild and basically getting integrated into a larger community, right? So being able to talk in game will help a lot of people with getting integrated. Also help as a random check, for someone to make sure that they're not like a spy trying to infiltrate your node, I think people will actually end up using it a little bit more. Maybe not as much as they'd hope, but they'll probably use it a little bit, at least.
Yeah, it'll be the first step, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess I don't know the background of it. I'm like, how did they use Discord? Maybe they have some development line or code or whatever available for Discord. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I honestly didn't think about it. Maybe they have something like a test server or a test whatever, but from what they were saying or the way they described it, I don't know if Discord has any kind of integration already, if it was just something they had built in or designed as a proprietary type system. Who knows? For all I know, they could be using Cisco Jabber. I don't know, like as a back end. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just weird. Sorry, I know there's a lot of I don't knows in there, but we just don't know yet. So the final 2 points I have, and I think this is actually kind of interesting, and it's funny, the video actually restarted at this point, and Steven has up the skill menu, because that's something I wanted to talk about, that you gain skills incrementally, and you gain a lot during level up. The skill tree is neat, but on top of that, well, let's talk about the skill tree. Obviously, you get your first tier, and you have to spend so many points in each thing before it unlocks the next tier. It's fairly basic type of skill tree, but I kind of like it. And I mean, obviously, the more points you put in a very specific amount or a skill, the more powerful it is. You don't need to max out a skill in order to move it on. Like if you only have 2 points in one thing, it's not going to be as powerful. What are your guys' thoughts? Is this something that you like? You'd like to see this expanded further?
I would like to see a more in-depth version of it, because right now what they have, obviously just for the Alpha Zero test, is very, very basic. It doesn't really have anything to it, though. Like it's kind of confusing.
It's also only supposed to be designed for like 1 to 10. I would imagine the tree would grow a little larger as you're getting out to, I think what they said they're aiming for is level 50 as a cap. So the tree should expand and grow.
Yeah. See, I've always really liked the ones from. So have you ever played Dragon Age?
Yeah. Yep. The first one, anyway.
I always loved the skill trees in that. The way that they basically have like these almost like spanning out, like it's like literally a tree. You just have so many different options. I love that complexity. And that's how I hope that this will eventually look, Like you basically have so much complexity in it that you can just go crazy.
I mean, the idea of skill tree for this, you're right, is kind of not true, because it's not really a skill tree, it's a skill line. Because by unlocking it, you're just going down the path. But you're saying, like, you start with like one or two abilities, and when you go, it branches out that 1 or 2 now has 2 or 3 more. And you're moving up the tree. I mean, if we really wanted to get crazy, let's talk Path of Exile and their skill tree.
Yeah.
They have a large one. But like this also kind of brings me home to EQ again. I know I keep saying that, but they had AA lines, which is basically your skill tree lines, which then altered your abilities, whether it gave more debuffs or whatever. But it was very linear in that sense. But from what I saw limited on that stream, it looked almost to a certain extent kind of the same, where it would unlock, and then from there you could unlock another debuff or something on top of that skill, or you can move through the tree line. And I think that's really good. But I remember old EQ where if you did that and you put points in, it took a long time for many patches where you couldn't take back those points. So when the meta and the cookie cutter systems came out, and they always do, we put this many points into this skill, this many points into this skill to get max damage. If it is like the old EQ where the points will matter and where you put them will matter, I'm going to be very hesitant, and I'm going to be very, very, very scared to put points into anything until I know. And I'm very thankful that I have the alpha access and all the way through, so I can test things out, because I almost see it's going to be like that. And if it is, oh man, people are going to be upset at sometimes, but they're also going to be happy depending on where they put the points.
Well, I know they said. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So as far as that goes, I like that idea, though, of like being committed to something, just because it does have consequences. Then, like your choices, what you're doing, have consequences. But at the same time, it's also like you're saying, it's kind of like, well, what if I mess up?
I don't think you're going to have to worry to that extent. Steven has already said there will be a respec option of sorts, both with the secondary class right now that you may be able to switch. But he says it's not going to be easy. So it's not like, I have to delete my character. But maybe it's something more akin to going into like Dark Age of Camelot, where they had the respec stones, that the only way to get them was actually killing like the epic dragon raid. And there was only like, they went for tons of money because it took like 100 people to kill a dragon. And they dropped like 5 stones, and
like do it like EQ again too, where it was this long drawn out quest line that took forever amount of time, and it was difficult, and everybody was mad when they were doing it because they messed up their skill line. It was funny because you all got together and you had to do this long drawn out quest line. It took 20, 30 hours to complete, like no joke. And everybody had to be there and committed to do it just to respect 3 points, just so they could continue on with raiding. I think that might be a cool way to do it, kind of like that homage to the old school MMO system. I mean, I know a lot of people don't get to raid. A lot of people never end up seeing raid content. So hopefully there will be an aspect to that. But yeah, hopefully there'll be something where you can do it, so not everybody's super hesitant and
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to start seeing is there will be options, but like you said, 30 hours, I think it should be a commitment. Like you have to sit there and think, is this something I really want to do? But it shouldn't be, like you said, to the point where it's like, oh no. Like even Ultima Online, for instance, going into that game, it took a long time to skill up and you could only have 700 points. But eventually if you wanted to respec, the only option they had was you could lock skills and you could set skills to raise and lower. So what you would do is you would lock the ones you wanted to stay at a certain level, and then you would set other ones to go up and ones to go down. So like if you were let's just say two-handed swordsman, whatever, you did your swordsmanship, but you wanted to switch to axes for whatever reason, you would actually set your sword skill to go down and your axe skill to go up. So as your skills and axes were going up, your sword skill would go down because you essentially were unlearning. But it took a long time, but it took less time than having to redo your entire character.
Yeah.
That's better than also knowing everything too. Like, I don't want to be a master of everything. That's boring.
See, but that worries me too, though, because they talked about how, like, with religion and stuff like that, that will also give you skill points. So will those skill points transcend into, like, your weapon skill points as well? Or will there be a bridge where, okay, only weapon stuff will be for your levels and that nature of your two specs? Or will everything kind of bleed into each other where you can, if you don't have enough points, say, for doing that, instead of doing the 30-hour long quest line, you could do some quests for the divine and get those skill points that way. Maybe that'll be something. I was just thinking off the top of my head there.
Well, and this goes into the fact of whether or not the skill points are they skill points like you've earned points in the divine tree, or is it like ESO skill points where you've earned a skill point and you can put it wherever you want? Exactly. So you could be leveling the divine up just to earn extra points, but never actually advance any more in that tree. Like you're not. Some games will pigeonhole you, like when you're earning divine experience, you can only spend it in the divine tree. Well, ESO is like, you've earned a skill point. Like I was doing Dark Brotherhood the other day. I earned a skill point. I didn't use it in the Dark Brotherhood line. I wasn't doing anything in it, but I put it in a different line because it was just a point that I could use. It doesn't really matter. I
wonder, like, I kind of like the idea of it just applying a skill point overall. Just because then it kind of forces you to pick a religion, pick a god. Like you have to participate in this giant thing. You can't just be agnostic or an atheist. You have to basically go choose which one you want to follow.
Yeah, and then I get to hunt down all the apostates who decide they are leaving the religion, and now I can hunt them down. Anyway, Now here's something that I wanted to make mention of. So I saw them like you're putting points in. This is something that I really hope they change, or not change, or maybe even rethink about. Obviously, you need so many points. Like in this tree, it was very simple. They have 3 lines, right? And it's like you need X amount of points to unlock the next tree. As soon as you have the points in that tier 1, you unlock tier 2, and you can just pick any of those 3 things or whatever. Here's what I'm thinking. I don't want to see just raw damage increases. So let's say you have the thing that unlocks is Sword Strike, just something real simple. Rank 1 does 10 damage. Rank 2 does 15 damage. Rank 3 does 20 damage. Because in my mind, that's boring. Why would, especially it doesn't allow for a lot of diversity in builds, because why would you be using rank 1 unless you were just using it as a jumping spot to get to rank 2, in which case you wouldn't use it anyway. I would much rather have it change that as you do the ranks, the damage is the same, but it changes the way your point or the ability affects. Maybe adds an additional effect. Like rank 1 adds a bleed. Rank 2 adds a snare or something like that. That way, when you're sitting there going, okay, I put 2 points in Sword Strike, I don't need the snare. I have a snare elsewhere, so I'm just going to put 2 points in here. I think all the abilities should do the same damage when you unlock them. It's just, as you're putting points in, you're customizing your character. Putting 2 in Sword Strike versus 3 just means you only need this versus this, and you can get it elsewhere. I think that creates more of an interesting tree and allows for more diversity rather than you're going to see more of a min-max type situation. Like you said, the cookie cutter builds. If it's pure damage, people are going to find out what abilities work, what things you need to max out for the max damage, and what things are hopping. But if the points you're putting in don't just affect damage, but instead add additional effects to those abilities, it becomes more situational. Going, well, for this fight, having 1 in Sword Strike is sufficient, but for this one, maybe having 2 in there would help you because that snare would be more beneficial,
I like that. And I think they actually did mention in some of their show notes for one of the last streams that they did, they kind of were mentioning something very similar as far as like each thing you unlock has like an extra effect. But I'm not sure if they went all the way with it, like all the way with your idea.
I kind of hope they do something a little bit different where they, instead of just like doing the generic damage, bleeds or whatever, you can add debuffs or you could add, depending on your secondary line, maybe that will also affect your primary stuff depending on how far back in the tree you go. So just for an example being, I don't know, a paladin, your swing, your strike might heal yourself. Like they said that it won't heal the group, but it'll heal yourself. So hopefully that maybe, depending on how you spec it and how you change things, you might be able to go even more of a support paladin rather than just an actual tank healing paladin or something of that nature. So you do have that diversity. And then when it comes into the PvP, instead of just being those cookie cutter builds where you go, okay, that's a paladin, I know exactly what he's going to do. You have no idea what he's going to do. He could do multiple, A through Z, kind of ways of going about it. And then it allows for that unique play style of for your RPers, and it also allows for your damage, because that way, when something changes that drastically and changes your whole lines, you do get that unique playstyle where maybe you are the only person with that build on the entire server. Mm-hmm. And that could be fun or interesting. It might not work out the greatest, but it could be fun.
And this goes into both PvE and PvP, the idea of not just your individual playstyle, but how you fit within a group and how your group plays together. Having a paladin, like you said, maybe your healer's a little light on heals or whatever. Well, specking into now your strikes do a little bit of a group heal is more something that's how you're developing to compensate for the weaknesses of your team. Whereas if you would have went with the other option where it just heals you, but it heals for a lot more, you became a bunker. Like your team is like you're holding that spot, and people are going to have a heck of a time getting you off of it because you're so self-reliant. You don't help your team at all, but you're filling a niche role that needed to be filled.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And having those choices like that help reduce the amount of cookie cutter. I mean, you don't remove it completely. It never happens. There will always be best of scenarios, but it's not such a hard and fast best of like, again, World of Warcraft, and I think EverQuest 2 did this as well. Eventually, with the skill lines, there was if you were a DPS, this is the best option you can pick. Like, if you are a mage or a fire mage, this is your best spec. Like, you don't pick anything else. This is the tree you pick. This is what works. And I think they changed it later on when they got rid of the tree, but at one point, that's what it was. There was a best pick, and if you were this class, that's what you picked, or else you were intentionally hurting yourself. Whereas this would allow for, well, this may do the most damage, but this is the most support, so you pick depending on what your group needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would allow for more danger, especially on the PvP side, because if you see somebody, a tank class, you don't know what they have, and you have to play hesitant until you actually know what they have. And 64 classes, I mean, you're never going to fully know exactly what they're going to have, and I think that's awesome to know that, because you can have a little bit of support, a little bit of tank mixed in with a lot of raw damage, and
and just the combos with the weapons and then your armor on top of that. Just like
right?
There's no way you're going to guess.
Yeah, exactly. So the Minimax it will take away from that, and I think maybe people will shy away from the Minimax to a certain extent, at least in the beginning, right? That's usually where the organic part of the game comes from. Is the beginning where nobody knows anything, so everybody's helping each other out and playing together, and that's always the best part of the community. Once the cookie cutter builds kind of come in, it kind of destroys the game, in my opinion. But I'm hoping that at least with those diversities and those hopefully changes to each role, it will make it so the cookie cutter builds will be hard to come up with, if at all.
Mm-hmm. Actually, this is probably another discussion, but I'll say it just because I want to. Cookie cutters generally, the only time cookie cutters really become that dynamic or not dynamic, dynamic's the wrong word, that set in stone is when there's a need to push that rank or that level for whatever reason. Such as when World of Warcraft added the dreaded enrage timer. Support classes fell off the board because you had to have raw DPS to beat the timer. When people could out heal any support DPS and support, or the DPS got so high for PvP that support classes why would you do that? You either go full heal or full damage. There was no need for these things. That's when you started seeing the degradation of those more hybrid builds, because it was just worked out better because of something that was forcing you into picking raw numbers over utility. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was the December 15th live stream, and I guess we're about at the end of this episode. I'm actually amazed that we got so much out of it. We actually almost talked as long as they streamed, which is pretty nice, actually. Yeah, awesome. Well, guys, I guess before we head off, let's go ahead and do our shout-outs. Where can people find you? First off, Gundle, where can people find you on the wide interwebs?
So the easiest way to get a hold of me is either going to be through the official forums of Ashes of Creation or through Discord, which is Gundle at 1880. So it's pretty easy to remember. I'm leader of Mythic. We are focusing mainly on hardcore raiding. We've had a fair bit of acolytes throughout many games, big one being EQ2, where we were world firsting and server firsting, beating the PvE side of things as well as the PvP. And we are looking to do that continuously through Ashes of Creation. So either way, it's a good way to get a hold of me. We can set up some applications if you are interested in joining.
There you go. Awesome. And Sinbad, what about you, sir?
All right, so you can find us at our website, which is vengeanceaoc.com. We are a PVX guild. We're a hardcore guild, and we're exclusive to Ashes of Creation. We're NA-based, and our main focus in this world is going to be to set our mark on it. And we want to dominate our chosen server. We want to make sure that we're there to really thrive and let our members thrive. We're going to be focusing on raids, the economy. We're going to be focusing on PvP. And we've set up in such a way that, we're going to be able to be successful in each of those things. So come check us out. We're super active, so you can come talk with us in our lobby if you want to, or, come join us.
Awesome. And before we leave, I have to say, I said this pre-show. Nice beard, dude. I didn't say it at the start, but good job. Good job. Bearded Brotherhood. In fact, you know what? DCN's disbanding its guild. Vengeance is disbanding theirs. We're doing the Bearded Brother. I'm just kidding. You have to have a beard to get in. That's how it goes. Your rank is determined by how long your beard is. So.
Oh gosh.
One of my guildies, Kipster, shout out to him if he's listening. I know he does at time to time. He would probably be guild leader. His beard's like down to his gut. It's amazing, and I'm so jealous. I got beard envy. It happens. It happens. Anyway, all right. Obviously, if you want to join the Dungeon Crawler Network Guild, Hands of Fate, you can do that by going over to our website, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com, filling out a guild application there. We accept all members, from the casuals to the hardcore, and we actually have systems in place to allow you to advance within the ranks at whatever pace that you are comfortable with. And obviously, the events will be tailored towards various groups that you can decide from, your own self-analysis whether or not you want to join that particular event. But there will be stuff for everybody to do. Yeah, fun times indeed. If you just want to join our Discord community, which I do encourage, even if you don't want to join our guild, you can head over to our website, dungeoncrawlnetwork.com. There's a join Discord. Just join the conversation. We have hundreds of players in our Discord, and we all love to talk and chat. And even these guys are in it, and they'll be able to talk and chat with you there too, which is awesome. Anyway, everything we do, dungeoncrawlnetwork.com, links to our Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, all those places. You can find this show on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Oh, dear heaven. Anywhere podcasts are found, I think. It's Google Play. Oh, it's just everywhere. All right. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next time on From the Ashes. See you later.